guess whatever I want.
That's true. You can.
Uh,
Does anything happen?
There's nobody there.
All right, fine. I don't care if anybody's there. I did my hishtadlus. If nobody wants to come, that's fine.
Good morning. I'm not nobody.
Bob Bromberg and I are on.
So there are people on
So
it.
can you hear?
I hear you fine.
Can you see?
Yeah,
See?
Okay, because I can't see you. All right,
You
fine.
don't see?
All right.
See,
So
senor.
before we're on,
why did you do the
Nun
people?
Dal-
Did you do the dead people?
I did not do the dead people. I apologize. Okay, we gratefully acknowledge the contributions. we, we gratefully acknowledge the contributions of people who support learning in honor of dead people. Many friends of Stephen Vigder, Simcha Melech, Ben Meir Lev Halevi, friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece Leah Bracha Bas Rivka, Isaac and Evelyn Blacher in memory of Chaya Rachel Bas Iser, friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah Sabra Bas Chanuk Zundel. The next one is a living people. Friends of Milton Miller in honor of his 85th birthday. That's 2 months. Friends, a month of learning, Chaim and Phyllis Reese in memory of his father, Mordechai ben Yom Tov Lipa, and her father, Pinchas ben Avraham. Isaac and Evelyn Blacher again in memory of his mother, Zissel Bas Chaim Yitzchak. Ruven Zev and Susan Podolsky in memory of his mother, Fredel Bas Raga Feivel. Reb Yaakov and Malki Heinig in memory of his sister, Chava Bas Harav Simcha ben Yamin, his brother, Tzvi Aaron Zev ben Harav Simcha ben Yamin, his father, Harav Simcha ben Yamin ben Rav Yosef Yitzchak, and Malki's mother, Sosha Bas Choina. B. Pizer in memory of her sister, Rita Greenberg. And there are no days of learning today. So that takes care of that. Before we can begin, we're on Nun Dalid Omid Aleph. Before we can begin, I want to read a Ron. Anayder min hayerek mutter b'deloyin. If you make a neder not to eat greens, I'm translating yerek greens. Other could be another translation would be vegetables. Delo, okay. Delo has a yerek ela pri. The reason that the Tanakama excludes zucchini or yellow squashes are because they are defined as a pre-Adama. Okay, that's the first rationale in the Ran, which I'll explain further. The second rationale in the Ran is the Isma Farshi. There are other people who view the separation of growth, Adama, bracha foods, and maybe 8 bracha foods in a different manner. They split them. The stam yerich nechel kemeshuch shal chai. They eat them uncooked, okay? And delias and deluyan zucchinis, ainakain, they're not eaten raw. So we have two categories, two possible categories. One is yerek means typically food, grown food, eaten raw, and would exclude, a neder on them would exclude any grown food eaten cooked. That's the second explanation in the Ran. The first explanation in the Ran is that a plant itself is divided into 3 types of foods. Yerakos typically means the leaves and stems of the food. Kitnios or Zerayim, they're similar, almost synonymous, means foods that are seeds. So the first category, for instance, would be lettuce or kale. The second category would be corn on the cob. You eat the seed, or peas, or dried beans. Those would be Zerayim or Kidneos. And the third general category is payros. The payros are the plant produces a container, an edible container that holds the seeds. So you cut open a cucumber, you see the seeds in it. You cut open a butternut squash, there's that big hole in the middle with seeds in it. You cut open a watermelon, the seeds are distributed, those are payros. Now there are 2 or 3 vegetables that don't fit those categories, okay? Artichokes, are you eating the flower? Strawberries, you're eating it's called the hip. The strawberry itself holds the flowers, which are those little yellow spiky things. But there are only 2 or 3 such vegetables that do not fit the greens, the seeds, or the fruit categories. So there's going to be a machlokes in the Mishnah. How
Rabbi Mordechai.
broadly the word yerek is interpreted when you make a neder not to eat it. Did somebody have something on the line?
Yeah, what about roots like a turnip or a horseradish?
Okay, they're greens. They're part of the etsem plant. With some exceptions, like an onion, you make a shahakol for reasons that are not germane to our Mishnah. But again, yerek means edible portions of the plant that are neither seeds nor fruit. Okay? Someone somewhere might dispute that, but that's how we're going to define it now. So, hanoider min hayerek. You make a vow, you will not eat. And again, I'm going to intentionally use the term greens rather than the terms vegetables for reasons that will be obvious. Mutter b'deluya. You would be permitted, were you to make that neder, to eat zucchinis, yellow squash, etc. Because they, according to the Tanakama, they're peri, they're not yerakas. Okay? Rabbi Akiva Oiser. Rabbi Akiva says, no, the term yerek is broader and includes at least some pere adama, including squash. So Amrulo, the Chachamim challenge Rabbi Akiva. They Amrulo Rabbi Akiva, they challenge him and they say, Hala Omer Adam Lishlucho, Kachli Yerek. I say to Ruvain, he's going shopping, do me a favor and buy me greens. And when he gets to the store, there's no lettuce there, there's no kale there, but there are a bunch of zucchini on sale. So Ruvain calls me, Vahu Omer, Ruvain calls me on his cell phone. In those days, they'd have to go home and talk to the guy face to face. Lo motzasi ela deluyin. The only green things I found were zucchini. Do you want me to buy them? Okay. And that was the Rabbanan challenging Rebbe Akiva. In other words, the Shaliach would not, just using his shlichus without further clarification, he wouldn't buy the zucchini. He would need further clarification. That's their argument, that they are not included in the neder. So Rabbi Akiva comes back to them and he says, Aimelahem, Kain Hadavar. You're proving my point exactly. Because when the mayor, the guy says all I found were gourds. Okay. Cain Hadavar, that's proof to my point. Shema Omarhu lo motzatzi ela kidnios. If there weren't even any zucchini there, would the guy say, you want me to buy beans? In other words, there is a distinction. It could be included because he then says he opts, the shliach, I guess he has to get rishus, but he opts for another green foodstuff. So broadly speaking, he has a havamina that it's in the same category. And Rabbi Akiva says, well, obviously he's not going to ask about beans because that's in a different category. So that's Rabbi Akiva's justification. Ella, shahaduluyim b'chlal yerek. Therefore, Rabbi Akiva says, your question to me is proof that in a broad sense, zucchini, yellow squash, other peri fruits are in the category of Yerakos. But, okay, the kidneys ain't b'chlal yerek. But beans are too far removed. Now, beans themselves come in two varieties. One are fresh beans, peas. You buy peas in a pod. The other are dried peas. You buy the split peas in a little plastic bag. Okay, so what's the deal with moist, fresh peas in a pod? Or let's take snow peas, where you eat the whole pod, or string beans, where you eat the whole pod. Okay? V'oser b'pul hamitzri lach. Pul hamitzri, Egyptian beans, they're probably fava beans, or something like that. So
Cowpea.
what?
It's also known as cowpea.
Okay, I have never bought fresh cow peas. I let the cows stay in the field for that. Anyway, I never heard, and others here never heard of them. So in any event, the Tanna Kama comes back and says, if we're talking about fresh peas in a pod, these Egyptian beans, which are eaten in various modalities, then they are Yerakos when fresh, okay? Umutter biyavesh, but you're allowed to eat them if you made a neder about Yerakos, if they're dried beans, because nobody has dried beans in the top of their mind when they make a neder not to eat greens. But you might eat snow peas, have snow peas in mind. Yes.
How do you categorize a banana?
Banana's a peri.
Why do you make a burrow tree or double?
Because it's not an eighth.
Because the stem is pointing to the double.
And that's not the reason.
Yes.
No,
That's broad. There are halachic distinctions between what we call eighths and we call adama. One of the distinctions is if the product is a perennial, meaning that plant only produces a crop once, and then you have to start again, then it's always adama. Another distinction, again, I'm going to miss things because it's a very technical thing, but if it's more than 3 tvachim high, and if it has bark on the stem, and if it repeats, it's not an annual, it's a perennial. I used the word wrong before. And you get produce from the same plant year after year, at least 2 years, then it's an eighth. So a blueberry is an eighth, but a strawberry is an adama. Okay, I mean, you basically have to have a book and know or memorize the rules, because the halachic distinction, sometimes rabbis argue about a given plant. Okay, but it has nothing to do with the way it points. A banana is an annual. They have to redo, they have to put in another banana shoot each. What?
The branch does only produces.
Correct. That's what I just said. You chop it off and that's that. You got to start over. All right. So any other specific products we want to know about will broaden. Yes.
So when they say Yoraka, they don't mean only things that are very Adama.
Anything that is Yurakas is always Bore Pri Hadama. I now you're going to tell me there's some tree we eat the leaves of, but grape leaves. Okay, fine. But generally speaking, we eat nuts, which are a peri. We eat fruit, which is a peri from a tree. Again, at the very beginning, I said there may be some products that deviate from these categories. And there are times where rabbis fight over what the bracha you make on a food. There is like chocolate. You're not supposed to eat chocolate without eating an eighth food and an adama food on brachas on both those before, because they don't know what bracha is on chocolate. Okay. Now there is another loophole, of course, that the Shastachak adama works on eighth foods. What? No, all right, this is very far afield, but the notion that you can make a shahakol and cover it, or the notion you can make an adama and cover it because you don't know what that thing is wrong. You cannot do that. If bidat lechatchila, b'di'evet, if you already did that, and then you see the rabbi walk in, and you say, Rabbi, I took a bite out of this thing and I made it a shahakol. Do I have to make another bracha? He'll say, b'di'evid, you were yoytze. But lechatchila, you're not allowed to do that. You have to judge what possible brachas could be made on that food, then find foods with each of those brachas and make the bracha on the food you're sure about. And have in mind that if this weird looking thing is an adama, I'm covered. If it's an eighth, I'm covered. And if it's neither, I made a shahakol, I'm covered. But you can't just go into the kitchen, kiddush, make a shahakol and fresh to your heart's content. You can't do that. All right, can we go back to the Gemara?
An interesting point, Rabbi Lezer Meir Tice uses at his Seder for karpas, he uses a banana.
Okay.
To demonstrate that,
that you can use anything. Yeah, in our family, we have parsley, potato, and something else, because each son-in-law has, or daughter-in-law has a different family name. But in any event, all right, all that's good. And Mikates, I won't be here, but we could talk about it. Okay, back to the Gemara, Baruch Hashem. Another min hayerek, you make a vow that you're not going to eat greens. Okay, and then they yelled at Rabbi Akiva for saying zucchini is included. Ha min yerek nader, they made the vow on greenery, which we're now defining as leaves and stems, and we're not defining as fruit. Omer Ula, but Omer Yarki Kedera Olai. I'm talking about greens that are cookable. Remember, the Ran said Yerek means raw food, lettuce. Okay, But he is saying, Ula is saying what the guy actually said is, I'm kainem yarki kadera, greens from a pot. So the Gemara tries to qualify it even further. Dilma yerek hanecho b'kedera ka'amar. Maybe greens that are put in the pot for flavoring purposes to create tom. So maybe the guy is ushering plant-derived spice products, and maybe he's ushering soup greens, which are put in a soup to add flavor to the soup. But Oimer Yerek ha misvashel b'ketera alai, or he says maybe I'm ushering on myself greens that are not typically eaten raw, but that are always eaten after cooking in a pot. Until spinach salads became popular, nobody would have thought of eating raw spinach. You always eat it in a pot. Similarly, kale, cabbage, the like. So maybe that's what the guy had in mind. So, what exactly are they arguing about? We're going back to the text in the Mishnah. What we're arguing about is if Reuven would call me before buying a specific vegetable, if I sent him to get me salad greens. You can make coleslaw out of cabbage, but he wouldn't bring home, which is a salad, but he wouldn't bring home a cabbage without checking that that would be acceptable. And that's what they're arguing about. Kol milsa, the tzarech shlicha ha'imluchi Allah. Anything where the shaliach would have to make the phone call, can I substitute with X? Then the Tanakama is telling us that that is not included in the neder. But Rabbi Akiva Sovar, Rabbi Akiva says, Kol milsa dememlich shlicha Allah, anything that the shliach considers close enough to Yerakos that he'd call and say, could that be a decent substitute? Minehu. That is included in the original neder by the maker of the neder. So that's how we're up to at this point. Amar Abaye points out that Rabbi Akiva is not 100% solid on his perspective. Moida Rabbi Akiva le'inyan malchus she'enu loike, that Rabbi Akiva would acknowledge that if Reuven brought home zucchini without calling, and I then ate the zucchini, Rabbi Akiva would make me stand in the corner with a dunce cap, maybe, but he wouldn't give me malchus. He's not that sure of himself that he'd give malchus.
Maybe it was a Zoom situation, so something.
Tanahasam, we learn in another Mishnah, okay, this is a Mishnah concerning how a shaliach carries out his shlichus, and if in the process of carrying out his shlichus, he winds up bringing back something that was hekdesh, who's got the avera, the sender or the shaliach? Okay, so Tanan Hasam, we learn over there. Hashliach sha'aso shlichuso. If the shliach does exactly what is instructed, kedas and kedin, bal habayis mar, then the shliach is simply the arm, the hand of the sender. He doesn't have independent authority or independent das. He did exactly what he was sent to do. And the product he brings back happens to be from Hekdesh. The man who sent him is the one who violates Mila. Lo also shluchuso, But if he doesn't do his shlichus exactly as ordered, then already he's acting on his own. He didn't do exactly what he was told to do. Shliach noel. And logically, the shliach is the one who's guilty of milah. Ma'at mantana. So who wrote the rest of that brisa? That brisa keeps going. Amar Rav Chisda, misnisen daloka Rebbe Akiva. It can't possibly be Rebbe Akiva. Okay, did Tanan, because we learned Amar lo, if the man says to the messenger, Tain basar orchim, go get me meat for my guests. V'nasan lehem kaved, and instead of bringing back roast beef or brisket or steak, he brings back calf's liver. Okay. Or the man says, Tain kaved, give my guests liver. The nice and lehem basar, and he sees a sale on rib steaks that is even cheaper than liver, so he buys the rib steaks and prepares them for the guests. Hashaliach moel. If the liver or the meat was from hektish, the shliach deviated from his instructions, and therefore he's guilty of milah. Rabbi Akiva, if this Mishnah or this brisa rather were written by Rabbi Akiva, Ha'omer Rabbi Akiva already told us, Kol milsa demilach Allah shliach, anything that the shliach could reasonably connect with the sending instructions. Mine, who is considered part of that. So in other words, Rabbi Akiva would say, Kaved is sir, and it would be the owner, the man who sent him, who would be over the Lemoel Balabayas. It would be the householder who sent him shopping would be guilty of milah. Velo Moel Shliach, and it would not be the Shliach. Okay, so we can see it textually that it's not Rabbi Akiva, except Omer Abaya, Afilu Tamer Rabbi Akiva. We could argue that it is indeed still Rabbi Akiva. Mi loy made Rabbi Akiva ditzorech ameluche. Didn't Rabbi Akiva tell us that if it's a little deviation, even though the product might well be in the category, if I sent you to buy brisket and you have to give me a call and say, can I buy liver? You might not have to give me a call if it's a standing rib roast that was cheaper than the brisket, because I'd be satisfied with that. But you would not be sure in your own mind I'd be satisfied with the liver. So you'd ask me. And yet Rabbi Akiva would say that the liver is usher, because it is broad enough to be included in the neder. Okay. I'm not a marriage counselor. That's above my pay grade. Okay. In my family, I do the shopping. She tells me what protein to serve, and I can't deviate from that. But the rest of the meal is on me. Your arrangements with your wife are your business. Itmar. Grapes are not protein. Itmar. Shemata Kame de Rava. Abaya's memra that he just said was repeated in front of Rava. Omer Lahon, he answered back to whoever told it to him. Shaper Omer Nachmani. Rava Abaya was right. Okay, it's called Nachmani because Rava is his uncle. His father Nachman died, and he was brought up by his uncle. And in order to keep the family name Nachman alive, he used to call him Nachmani. Okay, so that's just a little side note. So Man Tana the Polik Ale the Rabbi Akiva, who's the Tanakama, who's the one that disagrees with Rabbi Akiva? Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Who? It's Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The Sanya, we have a Bryce. Hanaider min habasar. Now the first half of the Bryce is not Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, but we have to read it anyway because it's here. Hanaider min habasar aser b'kol minim basar. If you make a neder not to eat flesh, you're not allowed to eat anything that's fleshik. Aser b'roish, you can't eat tongue. Uberaglayim, you can't eat shank bones or fecal. You know, what's that stuff called? Cha. Right. Ubekana, you can't eat the tube that goes through the neck or neck meat. Bekaved, you can't eat liver. Ubelev, and you can't eat heart. So basically, he's saying that organ meats, offal, all of these non-pure muscle meats are still forbidden because they're all basar. And he even goes further, but he does, and he even says, you can't eat chicken because we talk about white meat and dark meat. We use the term basar for chicken. Umuter babasar dogim hagav. But he does not include in the term basar fish or kosher grasshoppers. Rabbi Shimon, now we get to Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, if you make the same vow, I will not eat meat, it's like a carbon to me. Aser b'chol mini basar, you're forbidden to eat normal muscle meat like roast beef and brisket and calico. Umuter b'rosh b'raglayim, but you could eat the neck meat that you pick out of the bones, and you could eat psha, okay, ubekana, and you could eat the abakayved ubelev, you could eat organ meats. So Reb Shimon is much more makil. Uba oifos, and of course you can eat fowl according to him. V'ein tzorich lomer basar dogim b'hagav. And he says there's no even reason to mention fish and grasshoppers because the connector between all of the other types of meat and fowl is that in those cases, the blood is usser. When it comes to fish and grasshoppers, the blood is not usser. So they're a whole different smoke. They have absolutely no relation. Okay? V'chein haya Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, karavayim lav basar, kishkis are not considered meat. Va'oichlehen lav bar. And people who eat kishka are basically animals. Erwin, you got a problem with that?
I have a problem with that.
Okay.
I mean, now it's all plastic, it doesn't matter. But I use one in.
So the Gemara understands you have a problem with that, and it clarifies. Eichlen bebasar le'inyan zavine. What he basically is saying is in the butcher shop, when they clean out, they shech the animal, then they flay it open, they check the lungs, they dig out the organ products and the kishkas and the like, and they throw them on the corner in the floor, and eventually somebody collects them and grinds them up and use them for dog food. So if you decide to eat kishka, then you're saying my preferred food stuff is dog food. That's how the Gemara explains that he says they're not really people. So Mashna Basar Oath Latanakama, So why does the Tanakama, the Usher, why does the Tanakama take fowl, chicken, duck, goose, etc., turkey, and put it in the category of meat when you make the neder and it's Usher? The avid shlicha de memelicha, because think about it. You have your whole big lot of company coming. So you say to your friend, neighbor who's going to Aroma, listen, buy me the biggest rib roast in the store because I got to feed 20 people. And he calls you on the phone. He says, look, they don't have a big rib roast. They don't even have 15 or 20 rib steaks, but they do have a 20-pound turkey. Would you like me to pick that up? So since it would come to the shliach's mind to substitute the turkey, the Tanakama here and the Tanakama in our Mishnah would say that the fowl is forbidden. Please note the alliteration. Okay, the Avid Shliach he would call and ask about that. Basar dogim nami. So now the Gemara is saying, okay, fine. But what if this guy says there are not any rib steaks, but boy, do they have gorgeous ahituma? He might call and ask that question too. So Avid Shlicha Ido Ma'amashkach Visra Memelech Alei. If there was zero meat or fowl of any kind in the store, and he knows you've got all this company coming, he could conceivably call you about tuna or this humongous, gorgeous king salmon, right? So therefore, why the Omar, he would call you and he'd say, Ilo mishkachna bisra asedagim. What if I can't find any suitable meat? You want me to bring back fish? He could call and ask that of a lister. So therefore, logically, if we follow the Tanakama through, and if you acknowledge that the guy could conceivably call about the tuna, then why does the Tanakama say fish is acceptable? That's the Gemara's question. So Abaye explains. Now I got to do background. They used bloodletting as a medical procedure that allegedly would cure you of what ails you. There was a concept that what you eat prior to or right after you let blood could either be detrimental to the process or be helpful to the process. Okay? So, Kigon Shehikiz Dam, the guy is just now let blood, the law Achel Dogim. He would never think of eating fish because his third grade teacher told him you can't eat fish after letting blood. So the Tanakama is applying that. The only reason that you're going shopping for this guy is because you're laid up with just having you're in the middle of or just have let blood, and meat is good for you after you let blood. So he says, go buy me a nice juicy steak. And you would not even call him and say, there's no meat, there's no fowl. You want me to buy fish? Because you both were in the same 8th grade class. And you both learned that fish is harmful after letting blood. So the Tanakama says blood is not on the, fish is not on the list. So why does he include fowl in the neder includes fowl? Fowl also you don't eat after letting blood. It's also considered detrimental. The Omar Shmuel, and I can prove it, the Mesukar la'achil bisra ditzifra. Shmuel said, someone who had a bloodletting procedure in his shoulder, okay, and then Basra did Sifra, and then he immediately followed up with eating chicken, buffalo wings. Parach lebe b'tzafra, he would have heart palpitations, and his heart would flutter like the wings of the bird did. So that's why you can't eat chicken after bloodletting. Okay, Vasanya, we also have another brisa that said, Ein makizin, we do not let blood, lo ala dogim, immediately after eating fish, velo hala oifos, not immediately after eating chicken, velo al basar maliach, and not after eating corned beef or pastrami or salami, cured meat, literally salted meat. Okay, v'zika dam, if you do let blood, lo yachol lo chelev v'lo gvina, you're not supposed to eat cheese or milk thereafter. V'lo beyim v'lo shechalayim, you do not eat eggs, and you do not eat watercress. V'lo oifos, you do not eat chicken or other fowl. V'lo basar maliach, you do not eat corned beef, pastrami, any salami, any of those cured meats. Okay, but you did not see fish on that list. Shani, I'm sorry, fat chicken is different than fish. Why? The efsher al yedei shliach, because of going back, because it is theoretically reasonable for the shliach to call and say, I couldn't
No,
find
it's
steak, should
not
I buy
shliach.
turkey?
Where
What?
do you get shliach? It says shlika.
Oh, I'm sorry, shlika. I apologize. I misread it. So we had the word sholik earlier in Mishnayos, and there it meant undercooked. Here, shliach means well stewed.
Boiling.
I'm sorry, shalika. Here, shlika means well stewed. So what we're talking about here is you can take a chicken and you can cook it forever in a pot, and you can make delicious chicken soup. And then if your wife is like my wife, she doesn't want to throw the chicken away. She makes me make chicken salad out of this completely almost devastated, flavorless piece of chicken. Okay, so that's why fowl is different than fish. Again, I would also point out that fowl and meat, blood is a problem. Fish, then the blood is not a problem. Abaya tells us, Dogim koshin leinai. If you have eye issues, Mel, take note, fish is detrimental to eye health. Okay? If that's the true case, then if a person has an eye problem, achel dogim, he should eat fish. Omer Shmuel, because Shmuel says, Nun samech ayin, nun sama le'enayim. He says, Aroshe Tevas Nun Samech Ayin is a code that fish is good for the eyes. He argues. He said fish is a good health, and actually fish has omega-3s. It actually is good for the eyes. Hahusof uchla. But the Gemara qualifies, and it says if you have a transitory eye illness, pink eye, say, where it'll be a few days or a few weeks till you recover, the fish is good toward the end of the illness, but not on an ongoing basis through the illness. And since that's the end and the next is a Mishnah, we'll stop there. And either Kenny or I will pick up on tomorrow. Okay. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
And root for Argentina.
Don't cry for me.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
So anti-Semitic.
Huh? Because
Thank you very
Messi-
much. Have a good day.
Okay,
Very good, Bob.
Thank you.
Messi has
Harvey,
been
you
playing for
back?
20 years. Argentina also. They blew up that place with the
Yeah, but
Jews.
which is getting,
Mordechai,
where
who
the
they
Jews
playing?
leaving?
Right there.
Both. They're both leaving both. But that's not the
For
point.
what?
Messi has every honor in
Who am I gonna tell?
soccer except the World Cup. And Mbappe is only
Irwin's there.
Yeah.
years
Bob
old.
is there.
He's got plenty of time.
What?
Sounds like you followed it.
Yeah,
Irwin is off.
I'm on. What do you want?
Flag that-
Irwin,
Yeah,
Irwin, do me a favor.
yeah, if I can.
Lay out $20 for me
Two,
for that, they want.
for
for-
Hanukkah. Yeah,
Yeah, please.
Okay,
And I'll give it
okay.
to you as soon as I see you. All
okay.
right?
When are you
Thanks.
coming back?
I was supposed to come back today, but I decided not to. Too many people coughing still.
Okay,
So I'll be back tomorrow maybe.
okay. No, it doesn't matter. Whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
I'm
bye.
alive. I'm still alive. Okay.
All right, okay.
Thanks, Irwin.
Okay,
Right.
bye.
Bye-bye.
That stuff there for suckers, but Sam, I didn't.
What's
Yeah.
going on here?
That's what they did.